On August 4, 1892, in a small house in Fall River, Massachusetts, two bodies were found brutally hacked to death with an axe. The culprit? A figure no one expected. Today, we step into one of the most horrifying cases of the 19th century in America, the case of Lizzie Borden. Did she really wield the axe to kill her parents? Or is there a darker secret buried beneath the surface? Let's uncover the truth together. In the shadows of Fall River, Massachusetts, in 1892, a small house stood silently, like an unmarked grave. Inside those cold walls, the Borden family lived, or rather, endured a life suffocated by resentment, greed, and unspoken secrets. Imagine this: a wealthy family, yet imprisoned by frugality and sharp, watchful eyes. This is not a heartwarming tale of family bonds. This is the prelude to a blood-soaked nightmare. Andrew Borden, a man as ruthless as the money he hoarded. A wealthy businessman, yet he lived like a pauper: no electricity, no hot water, only darkness and cold enveloping the house. People said he was so miserly that he forced his family to live in deprivation just to cling to every last cent. But what he didn't know was that his stinginess had already dug his grave. Then there was Abby, the stepmother, the woman Lizzie called an outsider. A plump, quiet woman, yet her eyes always shimmered with caution. Lizzie believed that Abby hadn't just entered the house to replace her mother, but to steal her father's fortune. Between them was a wall of hatred that could never be broken. And in her final days, Abby began to sense a chilling presence drawing closer. And then, we come to Lizzie Borden, the central figure of this nightmare. 32 years old, unmarried, intelligent, yet there was something in her gaze that sent shivers down people's spines. They said she was an angel at church, but in this house, she was a silent specter, harboring a fury no one could see. She despised Abby. She resented her father. And perhaps, she had already begun planning something unspeakable. In the days leading up to the tragedy, the air in the Borden house was heavy, like the sky before a storm. The entire family suffered from food poisoning, an accident, or a warning? Andrew whispered to friends that he suspected someone was trying to poison him. Abby trembled, feeling unseen eyes watching her every step. And Lizzie, she remained silent, but her hands might have already been picturing the sharp edge of an axe. This house was no longer a refuge. It was an arena where blood was about to be spilled. August 4, 1892, a day that seemed ordinary in Fall River, yet fate had already woven a web of death inside the Borden house. No one suspected that within just a few short hours, blood would stain the walls, and the sound of an axe would echo like a symphony of death. Step into this chilling moment, the moment when everything began to collapse. Early in the morning, weak sunlight filtered through the tattered curtains. Andrew Borden left home as usual, his heavy footsteps echoing on the cobbled streets. Left behind in the cold house was Abby, quietly tidying up the guest room on the second floor, and Lizzie, somewhere in the shadows, silent as a ghost, her sharp eyes watching everything. No one heard the sound of an axe being sharpened, not yet. At around 10:30 a.m., Andrew returned home, exhausted from his meetings. He stepped into the living room, lay down on the sofa, and closed his eyes, unaware that death was lurking nearby. But before that, on the second floor, Abby had already met her fate. A shadow crept closer. Thud, the axe swung. Once, twice, then 19 times. Blood splattered, soaking the wooden floor as Abby collapsed in absolute silence. And then it was Andrew's turn. He lay there peacefully on the sofa, unaware that the murderer was now descending the stairs. The shadow moved closer. Swing! An axe struck his face. Swing! Another blow, then 11 more in rapid succession. Blood gushed like a fountain, spraying onto the walls, onto the ceiling, turning the room into a slaughterhouse. When it was over, Andrew's face was no longer a face, just a mangled mess of flesh and bone. Around 11:15, Bridget, the maid, was resting upstairs when she heard Lizzie scream, "Come down quick! Father's been killed!" Bridget rushed down, and the sight before her froze her in terror. Andrew lay there, blood still flowing, the air thick with the stench of death. The police arrived, searched the house, and found Abby on the second floor, cold and lifeless, with 19 axe wounds carved deep into her flesh. No signs of forced entry. The doors were locked. The killer was still inside? The police searched the basement, and they found a broken-handled axe, lying quietly in the dark corner. But no blood. No fingerprints. Was it the murder weapon? Or had the killer erased every trace? One thing was certain, the murderer had never left the house. They were still there, hiding in the shadows, waiting. After the blood-soaked nightmare of August 4, 1892, the Borden house fell into a deadly silence. Yet the biggest question remained unanswered: who wielded the axe? The police stepped in, the dried blood on the walls whispering its horrific tale, but the killer, whoever they were, seemed to have vanished into thin air. Now, all eyes turned to one person, Lizzie Borden. Was she an innocent victim? Or a demon in disguise? Let's unravel the chilling secrets of this investigation together. When the police stepped into the house, the air was thick with the stench of blood and death. There were no signs of forced entry, the doors were locked from the inside. Someone inside had committed the crime, but who? Lizzie, her face cold as ice, emerged from the shadows. She claimed she had been in the backyard when her parents were killed, looking for fishing gear or fixing a window, but her story was full of holes, like a fog concealing a darker truth. Bridget, the maid, trembled as she recounted. She hadn't heard a single sound, no screams, no axe swings, nothing, even though the house was so small that a mere cough would echo. And Lizzie? She was eerily calm, no tears, no panic. Then, a few days later, neighbors saw her burning a dress in the fireplace. She said it was stained with paint. But was it paint, or blood? The police began to realize they were dealing with a cunning killer. Why was Lizzie a suspect? The motive was as clear as day. She despised Abby, believing her stepmother was trying to steal her father's fortune. Andrew was planning to write a new will, leaving everything to Abby, a dagger to Lizzie's greed. But where was the proof? No blood on her hands, no definitive murder weapon, only the broken axe in the basement, wiped clean as if it had never touched blood. Had she erased every trace? Or was there someone else lurking in the shadows? In June 1893, all of America turned its eyes to Lizzie Borden's trial. The crowd murmured, the press went wild, and the atmosphere was as heavy as an execution chamber. The prosecutor roared, "She killed her parents for money and hatred." They painted a picture: Lizzie, with her delicate hands, swinging an axe dozens of times in a frenzy. But the defense countered, could a weak woman really do such a thing? No blood. No direct evidence. The all-male jury took only 90 minutes to deliver their verdict: not guilty. Lizzie walked out of the courtroom, free, but no one believed she was innocent. The townspeople shunned her, whispering that blood still clung to her hands, even if no one could see it. Was she the perfect murderer? Or was there a darker secret still buried in that house? The answer, perhaps forever hidden beneath the blade of the axe. As the judge's gavel struck, Lizzie Borden stepped into the light, free, yet never truly escaping the shadow of the axe. The horrifying case of 1892 seemed to be over, but the bloodstains on the Borden house walls still whispered an untold story. Was she truly innocent? Or did that house still conceal a secret darker than any nightmare? Join me as we step into the final chapter of this chilling tale. After being declared not guilty, Lizzie and her sister Emma inherited Andrew's vast fortune. They left the bloodstained house behind, moving into a luxurious mansion in Fall River, which they named Maplecroft. But freedom did not bring peace. The townspeople looked at Lizzie with disgust, whispering behind her back, "Murderer." The blood still clings to her hands. She lived in seclusion, isolated, like a ghost trapped by the very crime she may have committed. In 1927, Lizzie died of pneumonia at the age of 66, taking her secrets to the grave. The eerie part? Her sister Emma died just 9 days later, a chilling coincidence. They were buried near their parents in Fall River Cemetery, but did the Borden family truly rest in peace? Or do the echoes of the axe still linger in the shadows, demanding the truth to be revealed? So, who was the real killer? Lizzie, the prime suspect, may have been a criminal mastermind, erasing all traces of her guilt. But what about other theories? Could Bridget, the maid, have seized the opportunity and framed Lizzie? Or Emma, did she orchestrate everything in silence to protect the family fortune? Some even believe Andrew had enemies outside the home, and a shadowy figure slipped in, unseen. What is the truth? No one knows, and perhaps no one ever will. Today, the house at 92 2nd Street stands as both a museum and a hotel. Visitors swear they hear footsteps on the stairs, whispers in the night, and sometimes the sound of an axe slicing through the air. Could the spirits of Andrew and Abby still wander, seeking justice? Or is it Lizzie herself, laughing at us from beyond the grave? The Lizzie Borden case is not just a tragedy, it is a curse that remains unsolved. What do you think? Was Lizzie the murderer, or was she merely a pawn in a darker game? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe as we uncover more chilling mysteries.